My name is Kristian Helle. I am a one thing that I'm trying out right now. Let's see. I am a creative living coach. I specialize in career transition without sacrificing family presence. And I just drank some coffee with some heavy whipping cream in it. And I'm about to ask Lyssa deHart some awesome questions.
I want your coffee.
As you drink some coffee.
As I drink some coffee. So yay. Well, I'm very excited to be here with you for part 2.
Awesome. All right. I'm gonna ask you a couple of questions from that were on my list from last time. And these were the ones that I told you that I'm kicking myself that I haven't been able to ask you yet. So just right out of the gate.
All right, we're going in deep.
Going in deep. And forgive me if I did ask you these questions and I forgot.
Well,
you can just be like, I answered that.
I'll be like, yeah, I've heard that question before.
Yeah. So this question is actually one that is close to my heart. Because this one kind of expanded my direction towards coaching and the life that I have now. If your monthly expenses were covered, what would you do with your day-to-day time?
If my monthly expenses were covered, what would I do with my day-to-day time? So one, you did not ask this question, so yay you. And two, it's a really interesting question because I love what I do. And technically, I have created a life in which my day-to-day expenses are covered. And I still choose to do this. So I would still be coaching. I mean, it's sort of funny. People talk to me about like, I'm really looking at the transition into retirement. I really want to retire and, go do other things. What I realized when I shut down my practice, therapy practice at the end of 2013, was I never wanted to be limited to a place again. So I really decided I was going to become an untethered coach. And so in 2014, I really started looking at phone coaching, or Zoom came online pretty quickly. And I started using Zoom in order to connect with my clients. And I have really appreciated that. So, and this ties into your question in that I never see myself retiring. Now, I may reduce the number of clients that I work with, or I might be more selective than I already am about the clients that I choose to work with. But I see myself coaching until I can't anymore because I love having these important conversations with people. And, you and I had been talking about this earlier, but, there's this belief that I carry with me, and what really aligns me with coaching is this idea of people being whole, capable, resourceful, creative. And in a world filled with people who are really Johnny on the spot to tell us what we need to do and unleash their advice monster on us at any moment in time, I think that what coaching really offers is an opportunity to have a real conversation with another human being and amplify their voice, amplify their genius, and really help them hear those moments of insight and awareness that if nobody caught it, they might say this amazing thing, but nobody heard it, the tree falling in the forest, nobody heard it. So they just kind of like are skipping stones. They just skip across the surface without somebody to go, wait a minute, I just heard you say something really interesting. Would you mind going below the surface on that and exploring it? So if I never had to worry about money again, ever in my life, and I do have expenses, but if I didn't, I would still do this because this stuff feeds my soul.
Oh. Woo! Oh. Oh, that last sentence just, I don't even know what it did to my heart, but it did something. It
Yeah.
felt velvety.
And it
Oh,
feels that way. There are times when I'm working with my clients and I can just feel my heart open up and like light shining out of me. And it is for me, it is that transcendental moment of connectedness and interconnectedness of two human beings being in each other's presence. And what I see with a lot of coaches, and this isn't good or bad, it's just a thing that I see, and I think there's a real place for it also. But a lot of coaches are very focused on the goal of like, what is your goal and how do I help you get there? And let's do a line drive to this goal. And I have a belief that if you can Google it, you don't need me. Right. And
yeah.
so, and so for me, having these deeper conversations, like actions and results are important, but if we don't get below the waterline in our conversations and have these more rich, meaningful conversations about what's really important to our clients and what are the things they haven't looked at. In fact, I was asked by my coach just the other day, she said, I said what I wanted to work on. And she says, in what ways have you not, like, what is the new ground you've never explored on this topic? Because God knows I've gone over it a few times in my mind before bringing it to coaching. I had a lot of ways I've already thought of it. And that just put a pause button on me like nobody's business. And I had to sit there and think, like, what is the new ground? And she just sat there silently while I pondered it until I was like, besides, that was a really good question. I'm freaking stealing it. I was thinking, here's the new ground. And then that's the direction we went exploring, which
Mm.
opened up something that I couldn't have opened up if I just went through the same conversation I've always had. Right. So I don't know. Long, convoluted answer to your question. I would do this. This feeds my soul.
Nice. Oh man. Yeah, that was good. Hmm. Okay. All right. About. If there were two of you, the other you would be doing blank.
Well, what would the other me be doing? I probably writing more. I write a lot, but there are things that I feel like I don't have enough time to get done and also recuperate. So really maybe there's two answers to that. The other me might be writing more, or the other me actually, in all honesty, would be hugging trees a lot more often. I would be really doing more taking walks and taking breaks. And that's something that has come up with like in my coaching when I was talking with my coach about like all the pokers that I've got in the fire and racking and stacking them and really trying to determine which ones really are drawing my energy and do I really want to put my effort and time and invest energy into. And one of the things that I've done in the last couple of weeks is I totally revamped my calendar to create space between sessions so that I wouldn't be going from person to person to person to person, but rather I would have breaks in between. And I have been committing myself to get outside, especially on days like today where we have sun, get outside and take the puppies for a walk and hug a tree or two, but really be outside and take that time to reconnect with myself. So so my other self would be doing more of that, but that just makes me consider like how do I join these two elements, the part of me that works really hard with the part of me that needs that revitalization so that I can continue to produce what's useful.
Actually runs perfectly into another question that I have written down, but what are your preferred ways of slowing down?
I remember watching a movie one time. This was a long time ago. And I don't really even remember the movie's name, but there was a place in it where the one of the characters said, all of the important answers to life are found in nature. And that just really resonated with me. And so the way that I find myself re-energized is whether it's gardening in my own garden, whether it is walking through the forest. And I'm blessed. I live in a place where literally I'm surrounded by a forest, so I can go out and walk. Um, I find nature and wild places to be those places that feed me and revitalize me. So I would be spending, I spend time, but I would even be spending more time, right, in revitalizing my soul in some way through nature.
So that's your preferred method. Do you have any other, I guess, contingent methods?
Well, I think of, it's sort of interesting. We talk about mindfulness a lot in the world, and everybody's a mindfulness coach these days. And so, I mean, I have a practice of how I center myself. I used to meditate for long periods of time. I grew up in a family of meditators. So this was something I started doing when I was like 5, was meditating. And my mom was like, we need to meditate and we need to be quiet for like half an hour to 45 minutes, to really do a meditation, which is a tough thing for a little kid to do, right? And so I would learn to just sort of sit there quietly, and every time, and I'd let my mind wander, but then I'd bring it back because, my mom would still be meditating. And one of the things that I discovered for myself is that I do much better if I have a daily practice of maybe stop and meditate for a minute or 2 minutes, 20, 30, 40 times a day, depending. And so, I may meditate every time I'm doing dishes. I may allow myself to just focus on my breathing or the texture of the water as I'm washing the dishes. And I make each thing that I can make into a meditation, I will make it into a meditation and use that time. I think cooking is a great place to meditate because I'm cutting things. And so there's a rhythm to it, and I'm breathing and I'm really being focused and aware on what I'm doing. And so I look for ways to incorporate those kind of mindfulness practices into just things that I do every day. Writing is another way. Like if I'm really needing to kind of process something, I will be writing it. I don't send emails or anything, but I may be processing it, in writing also.
Oh man, okay. What was it like writing a book?
That is an interesting experience. So I had the luxury of time, and that's been one of the things. Like I'm working on my next book already, but I've been working on it for over a year, and I'll be honest, I haven't gotten a whole lot done. And one of the things that I realized is because I had the luxury of time when I was writing my book, and so I could really determine I'm spending 4 hours or 6 hours, or I could get up at 1 in the morning when an inspiration hit me and come into my office and start writing. Like I had this kind of luxury of time to write. And when you've got a full practice, and you're really out there networking, and you're out there, trying to, I don't know, provide value so that people find you, or whatever that is, right, that we're doing in order to build our business, that takes time also, right? So when you start to look at these pokers that you have in the fire, it isn't that they're good or bad pokers. It's not like they're either one of them are a bad poker, but they take a certain amount of time and energy to do them well. And I had that time to write the book in 2016. My mother-in-law had passed away in 2015. She had been living with us, and my mom was still living with us at that time. She has not passed away, so she's fine. But I had this space of time where I could just really focus on my writing. And so that was the first thing that was really important, was the time and space to make it happen. Because if you feel like you don't have that, you're trying to just fit it in here and fit it in there, it can be done because people do it all the time. It's just that wasn't optimal, right, for me. So I needed that time. The other thing was, the interesting thing that I had to really explore in myself was, when you're looking at a blank page and you have a sense of what it is that you want to communicate to another human being through the lens of language, right? I had a gremlin that had come out of childhood. So I don't think I'm unique in this, but be quiet. You're a kid. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Why don't you go outside and run around in traffic? Like, what all those messages are we get as kids when we have a thought or an idea and we're kind of bothering people with whatever that is that we're doing. And so I internalized those messages. And I got some other kind of specific ones, like, you don't know what you're talking about because you're young, or whatever, like whatever those messages were. And so fast forward, and there I am, looking at this empty page, and the gremlin I really had to explore was, who am I to say anything, and nobody cares anyway, right? So that took time also. And it took time to push through and just write it. And then on top of it, I'm dyslexic. And I mean, pretty seriously dyslexic. I've got a lot of workarounds on my dyslexia, but I mean, I write something and I have got to have Grammarly in order to make it make any kind of functional sense to anybody reading it. I have a love affair with commas. My husband says that to me. You love commas, because I'll make the most complicated sentence.
Like a math equation.
Yeah, and it's like, how many words can you put in a sentence? Well, I had 60. I don't know about you. So it's like these narratives around, like, does anybody want to hear this? And can I even do it? And, what do I do with this blank page? And what do I share that's even of use or value? And so that was an interesting part of the journey. But in all honesty, it's the same journey for everything that I've ever done, whether it is learning to drive a car, like, can I do this? How much time is it going to take to figure this out? How do I hold all these separate perspectives and things that need to be paid attention to all in the space at the same time, so that I'm driving safely? Like, it doesn't matter what the thing is that we're learning to do. Those challenges arise, right? And so kind of slaying those dragons as they show up, and maybe not even slaying them, making friends with them, like exploring them, being curious about them, noticing whether or not that narrative is even true or not, or if it's just a rerun of an old narrative that you've just been playing unconsciously in your mind for a long time, you know?
Reminds me of it's the notion of, like, there's the whole follow your bliss, follow what makes you happy kind of thing, and then like the flip around to that's I guess at this point appreciate a lot more, is it's like, uh pick the burden that is worth it to you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
pick the, like, if everything sucks, pick the thing that is worth the doing the suck for you.
That is important, because there's a suck factor to everything, and everything that we do that's new is going to challenge us, because very few of us just magically pick up a pen and write the what is it, the novel of all time, right? Like, whatever that is, or the bestseller book of all time. I mean, even if you look at somebody who's got bestsellers on, like, so I took a writing class with Jen Cisneros back in the 2000s. I want to say like 2005 or 6 or something like that. And it was a group coaching writing program she had created. And I took that course with her. At that time, I mean, she wasn't a bestseller, badass writer, I mean, she was learning her own craft still. And you don't think about the fact that like, You're a Badass came out in what, I'm going to guess here because I can't remember, 2012, 2013, maybe. So it took her 10 years between where I met her and where that became a national bestseller. Right. But she was working that whole time. So her instant success was built on this experience of learning and growing and challenging herself to move through and write things that weren't bestsellers necessarily. Right.
Yeah, and she was a freelance writer way before that too.
And she was a
So
freelance, and even before that, she was in a band, right? Like she's
yeah,
band. And so,
crotch.
right. So, so like, and there's a transition. Like, how do you go from bang your gong to write a book or write an article? And so there's all of that imposter syndrome. And I don't know about Jen because she and I have not had this conversation. So I want to be really clear. I'm not speaking for her in any way, but I mean, I can only imagine based on my own experience that there's a challenge to the way that we see ourselves and perceive ourselves that we have to move through so that and it often feels like imposter syndrome. Have you ever, like, I know I did this. So I was in college and I had hair that kind of looked like my hair does today. And I got a wild hair and I shaved off like half my hair. It was really long on the other side. It was very asymmetrical. And I kind of went and I would only wear black. But when I first did that, I was like, oh shit, what have I done? Like it took me months to get comfortable with that, right? It took me months to get comfortable with that. I did.
Dove in.
I totally got comfortable with it, but it took a bit of time because every time I would see myself, I'd be sort of shocked that I had actually done this thing. But it's that same sort of thing, right? Like whatever it is that you choose to put on, like this is my coat, this is what I'm going to wear, and this is who I'm going to be. It's not going to be necessarily comfortable the first time you put it on, or the second or the third, right? It may take a little bit of time to move from that sense of, I want to do this. I feel like an imposter doing this. I've got this narrative that says I shouldn't, can't, need more, whatever the narrative is in order to do this thing. And we're going to have to push through that. I was talking with a client the other day. She goes, I need to be able to step over that line into that new self. And so then what is it? What is the thing that's going to take you over that line? Like, what is the step you need to take? And what she was talking about is maybe there's about 5 steps I need to take to even get closer to the damn line, right? Like, okay, what's the step that's going to take you one step closer to that line so that you put yourself in a position to be able to step over the line?
It's so funny. I mean, it's so true. And it reminded me of, so my son's in kindergarten this year, and like leading up to it, like, he's our baby boy. He's been, our stay-at-home child, like, all his life so far. And then we went and dropped him off for his first day of school. And it was a reality shift. And there's such an attachment to your identity and how things are. And like, it's so crazy because even that, it was like, well, what does this mean now? Like, he's becoming more independent. And my wife and I were like going through like the watching him walk into school and like, well, like, what does this mean? Like, it's a total mirror back onto you, but it's just like, it's in that instance, it's more just a natural progression that it's like, well, this is life. But even with you yourself creating your own experience, it's very much the same. Like this is your identity, and you're choosing to try to expand past that identity, and you have to work through it in order to get past it, or expand beyond it, I should say.
Yeah, that just resonates so much with me, because I think it is the way that we create meaning, right? Like our brains are designed to create meaning. So we create meaning about everything. And then we have to take a moment and get curious with the meaning that we're creating, because we know that your son needs to walk into that school. Like we know that's part of his developmental journey. And yet we have our own developmental journey around letting go so that we can support him in that journey that he's on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great though. That's a beautiful example though of how even in these what seem like kind of mundane moments, but they're not. They're in fact everything. They are an opportunity to yet again try on a new coat of how we want to be in our story, right? How we want to be with each other.
And exactly like you said with the curiosity point, it's not only trying on the coat, but questioning the coat. This is like, is this
Does
does
it
this fit me, or does this fit what I'm trying to aim to be? Like maybe I don't want to wear a sport coat right now. Like maybe that's not my truth. What is my truth?
does
What
it
is my
spark joy?
authentic value? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's it, right? But that's the cool thing. Like coats, I remember, coats can be put on and taken off. Like we don't have to go, oh, I got this coat and now I'm going to wear it for the rest of my life. Like, and we make these stories about like, I made this choice and I can never renegotiate the agreement setting that went into choosing this coat. I saw a meme one time that I just loved, and it's like, when a door closes in front of you, look for a new door, right? Like find a new door. But the meme was, when a door shuts in front of you, just reopen it. It's a door. That's how doors work. And it's only our idea that a shut door means something negative, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe it just means the door was shut. Like who knows? Maybe the wind blew it shut. Open it again. And I think like you look at somebody who's been ultimately successful in their life, they've continued to open the freaking doors.
Yeah, that totally makes me think of like this is a members only jacket and I'm gonna wear it for life because it's who I am. It's like, okay, that's your choice.
That's a choice. But there's a lot of different jackets out there that are maybe warmer, more comfortable, look better on you, different colors. Like you might need, and that's kind of the same sort of philosophy of, like I have a tool, it's a hammer. I hammer everything. Well, that's really awesome as long as life provides you with lots of nails that need to be hammered. Not so useful if you need to change a tire, though. Like at that point, you might need a few other tools because the hammer may or may not be all that useful. And I think it's these identities that we create for ourselves. How useful are they for where we say we want to go? And how attached are we to the idea of them? And what do we need to explore to let go in order so that we have the capacity to open up space to move into what's more meaningful to us?
Time for one more question. Or are we done?
One more. Yeah, one more.
What would you, if you were granted one question to ask Lyssa in 2028 from where you're at right now, what would you want to ask?
Did you honor your agreement to self-care? Or did you let the pokers build up and start juggling fire?
Juggling fire. That sounds like a book title.
Yeah, I don't mind doing a little fire juggling, but I also want to make sure I leave enough space in my life to also rejuvenate, renew, be in nature, spend time with my dogs, with my family, with the people that I love, and have enough humor and laughter in my life. And by golly, hug some damn trees.
Yeah, way to bring it back around.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you, Kristian, for asking the questions. And I really appreciate that this is a part of your research process and inviting me into it. I really appreciate the time.